Good evening. We believe we are on. It's one of these things in these live streams at the last moment. We went off too soon and then had to switch a link and start up a new meeting. So tonight's topic is the roller coaster with Dr. Sal Benanti and Kristen Huetz, life coach here at the Center for Optimum Living. So I have to say my heart's racing a little bit right now, but it was interesting before when we got on, when I got on this thing by myself, I was thinking, what am I going to say? What are we going to do? And as soon as Chrissy showed up, everything came better. And that's just the way it goes. So we're going to wing it. And, we came up with this topic. We were asked to come up with this topic about 2 weeks ago. And again, Chrissy and I had no idea what we were going to do, and we were just bantering and eventually dialoguing on exactly what we were feeling. And she had said, I just feel like I'm on a roller coaster. And there it was. I think especially at this time, the world kind of invests us in knowing what the future is going to be when we don't know what the future is going to be. And we get on this ride. Generally, we get on a roller coaster paying our ticket with the idea that the ride will end. And at this point, we really don't know when the ride will end. So it's no wonder that we're all basically feeling the same thing. And unless we talk about it amongst ourselves and really do discuss what we're feeling, then we never know. We can feel a little bit isolated. So that's how this began and evolved. And I will right now turn it over to Dr. Benanti.
Well, what's interesting to me is the idea that, it was in the dialogue that this kind of arrived. And as you said, we're having the glitches technically, and then Kristen arrived on screen and, somehow her presence, everyone just sort of settled down a bit more. I was thinking when I was coming into this tonight, the idea of the roller coaster, the ups and the downs of life. But there's also the Ferris wheel, which has ups and downs, but it's a smoother ride. And, the construction of the Ferris wheel, well, there's a center point in which everything is sort of rolling around. Whereas with the roller coaster, we're on a track that is taking us. We have very little control but to hold on. So I think we're going to be able to easily come again to that center point of our own response to whatever's going on fairly easily within the analogies and metaphors, which I know Kevin loves as much as I do, in terms of helping to get a better picture and understanding about the process of our lives. We often get so lost in the details and pieces that we lose the big picture. And, Kevin, one of our life coaches who also has been helping us a lot with this technically, he's experienced his immediate ups and downs right now, the technical glitches. Kristen, as we know and who's mentioned in some of the talks we've had in the past, is going through some really tough times in her own family with a young loved one who's in medical crisis, and yet is able to find her center point enough to feel the feelings involved and to participate with the contributions she's making to the whole crisis in her family, and as well as go about her daily life with the other things she has to do. I mean, it's remarkable. So, Kristen, maybe you can speak a bit to what you're doing, how you're doing this, how you're able to find your center point within this excessive roller coaster that you're getting right now.
And excessive it is. It's amazing to me as a person who views myself as pretty emotionally, even keeled, let's say. I tend to, roll with the punches, but I have, since this COVID / niece issue, when my niece first got sick, that was the beginning of my personal roller coaster, and that was in November. And just the shock of dealing with this, but I could accept my own feelings as, a relatively healthy, normal reaction to a tragedy that was occurring. And then the COVID thing started, which just added to that, as a backdrop to that. And then the cycle of my normal everyday life combined with the massive changes of not being able to now spend time with those loved ones who I had been very deeply enmeshed with on a daily basis, left me feeling like at odds and untethered, I think. And I went through a period, I'm still going through a lot of this emotional roller coaster feeling, and it can happen from minute to minute. It is not a matter of even day to day anymore. It's minute to minute. But I went through a couple of weeks there where I felt so confused by my own emotions that I was really struggling. And I had to really sort of just accept that it was okay to be feel so completely untethered. The purpose is a huge part of my life. It's so important to me as a human being to have purpose, to feel like I am of service. It is just it's the way I feel whole as a human being is to feel that I have purpose and I'm able to help and be of service to others. And that feeling like I wasn't properly of service to anyone, I had to just get used to that feeling and used to the idea that now I'm in service in a different way. Mm-hmm. I can't do it the way that I want to do it. Exactly. But then again, I don't know that anybody's doing things the way they want to do it. And mental health is becoming a bigger topic, a more open topic in our society, I believe. But I still think that a lot of people feel, and I don't know if I'm right, but the people I'm talking to, there's a certain degree of guilt. Like, why am I not getting through this with ease? I've got what I need. I'm okay. There are people suffering much more. But we can't really qualify pain and suffering. Mm-hmm. People feel what they feel. And it's that sort of acceptance of it. Like, okay, here is where I am. And while I can't fix this on a grand scale, what can I do in a small...
And to your point, it's, the acceptance, like, here is where I am. And you're going through the things, we're all going through the things within our personal lives. But then there's the whole social psychology of what's happening around us. Talk about ups and downs. We're going through weeks where we're seeing on our screens people singing for each other, helping each other, reaching out to each other. And then it flips to the other side and people are beating each other and hitting each other and killing each other and running from each other. So our whole social system, the whole network in which we live, one day stock market's up real high, next day it's down real low. Numbers of COVID are going up and then they're coming down, then they're coming back up again. And finding our center point within that is very difficult when our normal routines that tend to keep our lives in some semblance of order, some routines and patterns and certain expectancies have all been moved away. Initially, when this started and we closed the center doors for people coming in, we've continued with phone sessions and all. People say, how long will this be? And we say, well, who knows, maybe 3-4 weeks, we'll see. And people ask now, when will the doors reopen? When will we see each other in person? And the answer is, well, we're really looking 2-3 weeks at a time. And right now we see ourselves still continuing to not have in-person contact for another 2 to 3 weeks. And another week or two, we'll see again another 2 or 3 weeks, whatever the case might be. But to be able to see beyond where you can see is very tough. And right now, that added to the personal experiences we're having in our homes with our families, the intensity of the stress that comes in because we're not in that physical connection with one another. We thrive on our relationships. And as wonderful as it is to see people through technology now, it's still not the same thing as when we are in each other's personal energy, in each other's personal space.
It's the latent sense of emptiness. I recall, we talked about Laura Ann Noble a couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. When I was 6 years old.
Excuse me, just for those who may not have seen, would you tell them quickly who she is?
Laura Ann Noble, we all know her by her full name now. She's my great-great-grandmother, and she was born in the 1820s and was really in her stride around 1865 up in New York State. And she too, I mean, we have diaries, and she too had ups and downs and ups and downs. And she found her solace in nature. She found her root. She found her stability in writing, and we have those diaries that we're going to discuss in a couple of these later. When I was 6 years old, I was able to, the house that she grew up in was really abandoned. And it was a big day. Oh, we were going to go in, the ancestors' house. And I remember to this day that, we were in the kitchen, and there's a set of stairs, like in the old houses, that all, walk up behind the kitchen. And so my brother had said, "Well, come on up here. And he went up the stairs, and I'm this little 6-year-old at the bottom, and he opened up the door, and it was just black, absolutely black. And I have chills to this day from this experience, because anything could have been there. There could have been skeletons up there. There could have been ghosts. There could have been, demons that would have dragged me away forever. And I was thinking about that when Chrissy and I were discussing this. It's like, if we don't have a destination, we thrive on having a destination. We thrive on having some known condition that we're moving to. And we are meaning-making and meaning-seeking beings. And we will fill it in with whatever wants to have its way with us. Mm-hmm. And whether this is literal or not at this time, it's acted on me. I know it's acted on Chrissy and other friends. The antidote always seems to be, what breaks the spell is communicating with people, making a call, going out for a walk. But the one question to always ask about these feelings is, well, what do you want? Because these feelings, as I found, they're just not large enough, they're just not creative enough to ask, well, what do you really want, Kevin? Mm-hmm. What do you want, Chrissy? Mm-hmm. And that has burst the spell for me. And then I just try to do one thing. As Chrissy said, accepting what I'm feeling is just a feeling. It becomes logical. It becomes a little more logical at that point.
It gives you the healthy distance with which to deal. Yeah. And sometimes recognize, well, there's this feeling, and then there's this other feeling, and then there's this third feeling, and this feeling that is something that's lifting me, and this other feeling that's something that's pressing me down. And then, of course, there are all those things we're not even aware of. We can't put our finger on. Many people have come to be, something came across my desk the other day that, it was a list of the signs and symptoms of people experiencing stress at this time. And there's a whole list of things: sleep disturbances, anxiety, relationship problems, declining job interest, fixation on the difficulties, depression, inability to make long-range plans, overactive and underactive behaviors, headaches, stomach aches, appetite disturbances, substance abuse, food, alcohol, drugs, relationship problems, blah, blah, blah. There's a myriad of ways that the stress will show itself. And the more centered we're able to be, the notion of not being so entrapped or tied into a roller coaster, but being able somehow to get that perspective that gives you the healthy distance from the roller coaster. So it does move you more toward being like, on a Ferris wheel. So you're able to kind of move through the ups and downs, knowing, yes, this too shall pass. And yes, we're not the first humans to ever experience these kinds of things. And whatever thoughts or concepts can frame it in something larger. Many times I'll hear people hit a bad time and say, oh my God, this is devastating. Well, I mean, it might feel that way, it might seem that way, but you're going through a devastating period. And I think every one of us in our lives have gone through periods where we thought, this is going to be the low point of my life. And perhaps times you think, wow, this may be the high point of my life. But to recognize, like, on that yin-yang symbol that we're walking a path between the positive and the negative. And there's always some negative in the positive and always some positive in the negative. But we're in a path that is within and between and among all these moving variables, all these various feelings, all these various thoughts. And then when you have another person who you feel connected with in your presence, that affects us neurologically. It affects us blood pressure-wise. It affects us the way we feel and think. And to someone's point before, the notion that we're not so isolated. We're not so alone.
You know, and with those feelings, Kevin and I were talking earlier about it's about accepting the feelings, but it's also about not trying to change them. It's they are what they are, and sort of rather than like, oh my God, I'm feeling this feeling and it's not a good feeling and I have to fix it. I have to get rid of it. There's something wrong with me because I'm feeling sad or angry or upset or confused, which are feelings I think a lot of us are experiencing more than ever. But instead of just going, okay, this is how I feel right now, and I don't really need to change it or fix it or transform it in any way, but rather just be with it. And again, that healthy distance allows me to see it as separate from myself. So I am experiencing deep sadness over the state of our country right now, over the things that have recently occurred. That George Floyd, say his name, that's what everyone's saying, right? And watching that and hearing that man call for his mother, I'm going to cry again, was a very painful thing for, I think, a lot of people to watch, and particularly anybody who has a child, who could not imagine their own child in that position. And yeah, I feel heartache for him, for his family. And rather than me trying to stop feeling that way, just being with it, just, and maybe sharing in some tiny, minute way, some of that burden.
And that feeling is there. You're feeling a feeling that many people, everyone should have. The feeling of how human beings can be this way to others. And then on the other side, we have everyone standing up, people going to protests, not just like when I was a kid in college, but we have young people, old people, black people, white people, green people, blue people. It doesn't matter. They're there. And the Black Lives Matter, all these white people there standing up and saying, yes, this is what's really going on. So yeah, we are in a time of such transition. And I know in my own personal life, when I hit those periods where you're saying there's contradictory emotions and you're feeling, I've come to learn that when I'm at my best, I'm able to simply take it as, wow, there's something going on here. There's a transition happening. And it may be a few hours or days or months or weeks, but we're in the midst of a real shifting paradigm here. The things that and hear in the news every day. School mascots are being taken down and changed. All these symbols of who we were is starting to be altered to create better symbols of who we can be. And there's always ups, always downs. There's always a mix of feelings. There's confusion. And one of the wonderful quotes that I've often given to many clients is James Hollis's quote on anxiety, ambivalence, and ambiguity. And he begins it with a sign of psychological and therefore spiritual maturity is to, and I'll paraphrase, to sort of live in the center of all of this and accept that there's going to be ambivalence and ambiguity. And there are times when we don't know quite what to do. And we're supposed to, at those times, wait. And as I think he says, let the gods or the angels make their move to see what we'll do next.
Because life is an unending series of comings and goings and gains and losses, whether it's people coming and going from a party or whether it's, unrequited loves and relationships that really just have to be discarded, or whether it's entire societal paradigms that just for the longest time have not been discussed, and finally the conversation erupts again until it's addressed again. Yeah.
And if I know that, and I've talked about this a number of times actually, the little things, I struggle with how to address things in a big way sometimes. Like I want to do something earth shattering. I want to, be a part of something big, but I don't always feel that I have the capacity to do that. So what can I do in a small way? Well, as I mentioned, I've been really struggling with my own emotions over lots of different things. And then my friend called me and she's going through a crisis. And so I talked to her on the phone for an hour, for a few days in a row. And then I felt like, okay, I'm helping in some small way. I'm helping somebody else, and takes me out of, my own thought pattern, which, I don't want it to become too cyclical and get too mired down in it. So sometimes I have to take myself out of it and still know that I'm experiencing whatever emotion I'm experiencing and being comfortable with that, but also to, sometimes let it rest and move away.
So that's putting into practice the principles that we're sharing. Mm-hmm. Putting it into practice, finding a way to, okay, let me be with this, or let me table this, let me come back to this, but you are the one who is choosing how to keep yourself together, keep your parts from falling apart. This needs my attention. I need to tend to this physically, or this emotion I need to tend to, or and it's being able to live from a place of awareness and, as you said before, acceptance. To begin with awareness, this is what's going on right now. Not only with the people, places, things around me, but this is what's going on within my own emotions and my body, how I'm feeling, and my thoughts. This is what's going on. So how can I respond to these things that puts them in a semblance of balance the best that I can? Living within our sphere of influence. There's sometimes you can't do something about something going on physically, mentally, or emotionally, or with the people, places, things. Not with all of them, but there's usually one that creates, okay, maybe I can reach out to someone, connect interpersonally. Maybe I can read something. Maybe I need to meditate. Maybe I need a really good cry. Maybe I need to sort of stop the crying, pull myself together because I have this event or thing I need to do. And we thereby learn how to self-direct or self-regulate or I like direction, be responsible for the sense of, I can respond to these things within a direction that I want my life to go, which at this time is basically, I want my life to go in a position of balance, of being able to be of good influence in the situations I'm in.
I think all of these things, all of these demons, these bad wolves that get us, again, you just sort of be still and center for a little bit. They all seem to root back to an apocryphal or an ancient time when things were fixed, when I was in control, when everything was fine. Well, that time never existed.
Right.
The greatest piece of advice, one of the many greatest pieces of advice that I stumbled into was with a guy who was going to be a very meaningful professor to me, and it was before I had joined this educational program, and I came to him and well, I don't think I have the background, and I've done this, but you're looking for that, and do you think I'll be able to? And it was all of this chatter, it was all of this surface chop, that was like all of this high frequency detail, and it was a very rainy night. And he was about to leave. I had driven up to Troy, New York, and he was in this long wax coat. And he was walking out the door, and I was kind of like, but, and he turned around and without missing a beat said, "It's what you bring to it." And everything inside me just settled down. And I didn't even really know what he meant at that time. But it reached a deeper level. It said, it's what, it is what I bring to it.
Right.
That is where it begins. Rooted, the yin yang, whether it's all black, it's never all black, it's never all white. Things are coming and going. But as you have said, like the samurai, if we can become more skillful in weaving back and forth between come what may, then we can be a better influence to others. But it begins with it can only begin with what we bring to it.
And often, when you leave church, there's a song that I've often heard, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. If I'm going to bring some order or balance or peace to a situation, well, it's going to be coming from inside of me. So, it behooves me to try to nurture the best within myself so I can bring that to others. And as we often say, it's an ongoing, lifelong task. We alone, each of us, must continually become our best selves. Continually. It's not something you finish and you're done. We must continually become our best selves, and we cannot continually become our best selves alone. And so, Christy describing situations and feeling all over the place, and then reaches out to a friend. And in that connection with the friend, something happens, and there's a shift. And yet we always want to do more, and we want to do, but that's the product of a big, wide open, loving heart. One that feels and empathizes and has compassion and is ready, willing, and able to bring their energies into the struggling life energies of another person. And then sometimes by some miracle, you're struggling, and then the phone rings or someone shows up. Well, it used to be they show up at the door. Someone appears.
Yeah.
That's happened to me at some of my darkest moments, where somebody just had no idea, and yet somehow they knew,
right,
and were there for me. And I like the idea of that I hope that I can pay that forward in some way. Right. And I think that is how we create a more loving and peaceful world, is just caring about.
I mean, I think about the idea, when people say, it's so funny, I was just thinking about you. I mean, we've all experienced that, where you're thinking about someone and then they call or they connect in some way.
Else is frozen.
Yeah, you're unfrozen.
Was I?
You froze up for a moment.
Did I freeze? Or you guys froze too?
Yeah.
See? But that it's, in that way we're so connected with each other, we don't even consciously realize sometimes, but we experience when the phone rings or the person calls or you reach out to someone and you hear those words over and over. If we pay attention, we hear those words. Wow, it's so funny. I was just thinking about you. This is amazing. I was just thinking about calling you, or whatever the case might be. So yeah, there's that interpersonal connection beneath our level of consciousness. That is always there.
Chrissy and I have been friends for a long, long, long time. And for some reason, there was a period, I don't know how many years it was, that we just didn't cross paths. We didn't speak. Maybe it was like, I don't know, 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
Something like that.
There was always this lingering, well, gee, why? And we were just in different spaces. And then there was one day we just sort of came across and just kind of fell into each other's arms as friends and just picked up right where we left off. And to this day, we still don't know why, but we just, it's the roller coaster.
It's the roller coaster, and
reason why.
Yeah, and it doesn't even matter, because
right.
The idea that you can, I think that's the sign of a true friend, right? Is that you can pick up right where you left off, and
it just adds more texture.
Yeah.
And it's like you're not in the roller coaster car by yourself.
No,
you're sharing the experience with someone.
Yeah.
So as we come to the end of our time, I'd like to ask each of you to just close with whatever you'd like to close with.
Go get him, Kev.
I would say, just notice something. Just be aware, and it can take 10 seconds, 5 seconds. This morning after I finished some exercise, I just sort of stepped outside and I noticed, there's a lot of shades of green out here. It's just noticing something. And when you notice something, it just takes you out of the spin, the stir. Or there are times, when you wake up in the morning, there's a really small sliver of time before between your waking up and then all of a sudden, well, I got to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this. And you're in there. You're always in there, and that's the point when we can ask ourselves, what is all this trying to tell me? It's not about getting the answer. It's just about asking the question and just getting a break from everything that's going on. Any time of the day you can do that.
And similarly, the way I sort of deal with a lot of the stress right now is in between working and meditating as well. I just step outside and look at my garden. And I inspect the flowers and see, oh, there's a new bloom here. And it's like entering kind of a tiny little different world for just a couple of minutes in between calls, in between all the things that have to be taken care of. I get to just sort of look inside this tiny little world where I imagine maybe fairies live or something. I like to picture it. and just take myself out of it for a minute and go there and then come back and accept and allow whatever I'm feeling to be and not feel that I have to adjust it or not necessarily. I don't have to adjust the feeling. I might need to adjust me a little bit, but I can accept that the feelings are the feelings and just go with that. And reaching out to other people as much as I can, because that helps me too. We're all just sort of, it's that chain of helping each other through a tough time.
Because we are in this together.
Yes.
I mean, we truly are in this together. And, bits and pieces from divergent cultures are now starting to find common ground, and things are starting to all link in together. And it was once said to me that we've come through a period where it was about follow the leader, like a school of fish. Everyone get behind the one leader and follow the leader. And we were transitioning, where we were going to be transitioning into a time where it was more like a circle, where everyone's sitting together in a circle with a center point of light, so the image of the old campfire kind of thing. And a symbol that's always meant a lot to me is a spiral, where it's like we're sitting in a circle, but it's an open circle, and it's continually expanding and growing out. And I believe that light and that center point is within each one of us, where all the good stuff is, that there is no other. There is no black, there is no white. There's like just all this deep, unified interconnection, which we can read about, and the poets write about, and the singers sing about. And now and then we experience that sense of oneness and connection. And if we can tap into that more, nurture that more, that's what eventually brings us to a place of, within the crazy transitions that are going on now, of moments when you see people, young and old, black and white, tall and short, various sexual orientations, religious orientations, or none, or spiritual orientation, finding the common ground. And within us, if we can seek what is the common ground within the confusion that I'm feeling and the feelings that I'm feeling and the things that are going on. Sometimes the common ground is that everything is shifting and moving around. There's a transition going on even within you. And I know when I've gone through periods where everything just feels off, I come to understand there's something going on that's in a transitionary period right now. I'm not clear about it, what it is. Sometimes that's happened with things that I'd be writing. And it's like something changes and it's not making sense. It's not where, and then all of a sudden it clicks. And I realized I needed those 2-3 weeks of experience to help it come to clarity. It wasn't clear because I didn't have the experience that linked those pieces that were struggling, kind of thing. So we encourage everyone listening to do your best. As Jorge said a couple of weeks ago, give yourself a pat on the back because you're doing your best. If you're not doing your best, then maybe you need to notch it up a little bit and have a direction. And hopefully it's a unifying direction and have a desire. Rather than losing your passion and desire, have a desire to be a good contributor, and then to have the discipline to keep yourself moving in that right direction. If any of you are interested in going any deeper with any of these, our coaches, as you may know, are all offering a complimentary coaching session for as long as they can, with as many people might be calling. And if there's anything else we can do to be of help to you, let us know. We love getting feedback about these. I keep wanting to call them webcasts. I'm told they're called live streams, but I'm not very technical, and we're real people here doing our best to be with each other and to help you and to serve you in any way we can. So thank you for being with us, and hopefully we'll see you again next time. And please share these with anyone who you think that might be helpful to. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.